I know things at Buckingham Palace are at desperate levels when I see them run a story about how King Charles is thinking about reconciling with Harry, but we will get to that in a minute. We can all admit that Prince Harry's decision to step away from the British royal family was nothing short of revolutionary. As a member of the House of Windsor, Harry broke a generational cycle of unquestioning loyalty to the institution. In doing so, he became the first in a long line of royals to say, "Enough is enough," to the rigid expectations and control exerted by the monarchy. Let's dive deeper.
And for 12 months during lockdown where we said literally nothing, it was relentless. And that was a real eye-opener for me. I never thought that we'd be away from it completely, but I did think that we would get some form of peace. But that's when I realised that actually our mere existence outside of that institutional control was more of a threat.
I want all the people who are really fixated on why Harry is taking his, personal family trauma so public to really sit with that clip. Because when you're a generational cycle breaker, you are in a lose-lose situation. Because even if you try to say, okay, I'm not going to fight anymore, I'm not going to rise to the occasion, I am just going to go and find my peace off with my new nuclear family by ourselves, you are still a threat to the system. You are showing there are other ways of being outside of the system. I can only imagine how much more true that is for something like the royal family.
Prince Harry's departure from the royal family, alongside his wife Meghan, was a historic moment that sent shockwaves through the world. Never before had a senior royal taken such a bold step to distance themselves from the institution. For centuries, members of the British royal family have been bound by an unspoken code of loyalty, which dictates that the monarchy's needs come before personal desires or well-being. But while this code has kept the royal family together, it has also led to immense personal suffering for those within its ranks, and when this code touched his wife, Harry could not take it anymore. His decision to leave was not just a rejection of the royal family's control over his life. It was a rejection of the toxic relationship between the monarchy and the British media, which has played a significant role in shaping public perceptions of the royal family, often at the expense of individual members' well-being. Harry recognised this and chose to step away from the spotlight, hoping to protect his family from the same fate that befell his mother, Princess Diana. However, one of the most challenging aspects of being a generational cycle breaker is that it often feels like a lose-lose situation. From the moment Harry and Meghan left the royal family, it became clear that Prince William and King Charles were not going to let them go quietly. Instead, they have engaged in a sustained campaign of misinformation and slander, attempting to force Harry back into his role as the spare, the obedient younger brother who does what he's told. For example, when Harry and Meghan first left the royal family and sought solace in their own little bubble, away from the public eye, both the royal family and the British media did not stay off their backs. Instead, they continued to attack and undermine the couple, painting them as selfish and ungrateful. And now that Harry and Meghan are out in the world, championing various causes and making a positive impact, the attacks have not ceased. The royal family and the media continue to slander them, spreading lies and half-truths in an attempt to control the narrative. It's a classic case of damned if you do, damned if you don't. If Harry stays quiet and out of the spotlight, he is accused of abandoning his duties. If he speaks out and takes action, he is accused of seeking attention and creating trouble. But Harry is acutely aware of these tactics, and rather than succumb to the pressure, he continues to push forward with his mission. And speaking of missions, one of Harry's primary goals since leaving the royal family has been to hold the British media accountable for its actions. Now, it is important to note that the relationship between the monarchy and the media is one of mutual benefit. Through the royal Rota, the monarchy approves sensational stories that profit the media while simultaneously benefiting the royal family with a carefully curated public image. However, this relationship often comes at the expense of individual family members whose lives are dissected and distorted for public consumption. And that's where Harry comes in. His mission is to show that there is a way to exist outside of this system, a way to live a fulfilling life without being beholden to the whims of the British tabloids. He is not just fighting for his own freedom, but for the freedom of future generations who may find themselves trapped in the same cycle of control and manipulation. By speaking out against the media's tactics and highlighting their destructive impact, he is paving the way for a new era of transparency and accountability. And if you ask me, he is succeeding at it. Did you see how they protected the Columbia tour narrative from the tabloids? Well, members of the British media cannot stop complaining. Now, back to Desperation in the Palace. A new narrative has emerged in the British media. Apparently, King Charles is open to a truce with Harry after receiving advice from religious leaders that supposedly gave him spiritual nourishment. This story is a prime example of the media's manipulation tactics, designed to paint Charles as a benevolent and forgiving father, while simultaneously casting doubt on Harry's character. However, anyone who has followed the events of the past few years knows that this narrative is nothing more than a carefully crafted piece of propaganda. King Charles has had multiple opportunities to reconcile with Harry, yet on each occasion he has chosen snubbing over a genuine relationship with his son. The so-called truce is nothing more than a headline designed to make Charles look good while doing nothing to address the underlying issues that have driven Harry away. And to be honest, the lack of a relationship between Harry and his father is what keeps Charles in the news. The British media profits from stories of familial discord, while Charles gains popularity by appearing to be the perfect father who is always open to reconciliation. But these efforts stop at the headlines. There is no real substance behind them. When Harry was in the UK for the 10th anniversary of the Invictus Games, Charles chose garden parties rather than celebrate his son's achievements. And the British media was quick to tell us how King Charles was snubbing Harry. Well, this is the true nature of King Charles, a man more concerned with his image on the British media than a relationship with his son. And that's the system that Harry is fighting against. The royal family is a deeply selfish system that prioritizes the preservation of the institution above all else. Members of the family are expected to sacrifice their personal happiness and well-being for the sake of the monarchy's survival. This system has been in place for centuries, and it has caused untold suffering for those who have been caught in its grasp. However, Prince Harry is breaking this cycle by refusing to play by the rules. He is not willing to sacrifice his family or his values for the sake of the monarchy's image. This is a radical departure from the behaviour of previous generations of royals, who have often been willing to endure immense personal pain in order to maintain the status quo. Harry's actions are a direct challenge to the system that has controlled his family for so long, and they are a sign that change is possible. Despite the constant attacks and the lose-lose situation he finds himself in, Prince Harry remains committed to his mission. He understands that breaking a generational cycle is not easy, and it often comes with significant personal cost. But he also knows that his actions are necessary for the future of his family and for the future of the monarchy itself. His struggle is not just about his own freedom. It's about creating a new path for those who come after him. By standing up to the institutional control of the royal family and the British media, Harry is showing that there is another way to live. This is the cycle that Harry is breaking, and it is a cycle that has been in place for far too long.